hospital after what her family called 140 days of medical neglect. Mohammedani was awarded the Peace Prize in 2023 in recognition of her fight for Iranian women's rights. She's currently serving a multi-year sentence for speaking out against the government. For more on the conditions faced by political prisoners in Iran, I've been speaking to Shiva Mahbobi, spokeswoman for the campaign to free political prisoners in Iran. She's an activist and herself a former political prisoner.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, people in Iran have been living under the Islamic regime's tyranny for 47 years. So you have to remember 2 generations basically been traumatized, been tortured, imprisoned, and executed. In January, fast forward in January 2026, when a massacre happened in Iran by the Islamic regime and more than 40,000 were killed in only 2 days. And so when we thinking about the war and when it happened in the backdrops of what happened in January. So the prisons have been filled with tens of thousands of protesters left without any medication, any treatment, not food, some of them, and many been executed secretly. So when the war happened, actually people in Iran have faced 2 war with the regime and the attack by the US and Israeli. And to be honest, from what I'm hearing, people are more scared of the regime than even the attack. This is because since the war started, regime has been arrested every single day. They've been arresting people in Iran. So far from the start of the war, like around at least 25 political prisoners have been executed. Every single morning this week, political prisoners been executed. Young people who were arrested either at the time of the Women Life Freedom movement and they were in prison still, or those who were arrested in January 2026. So therefore, I think what's happening right now in Iran, which is not much on the news, is how the regime has basically announced that they will execute more. And so there is no ceasefire for people in Iran because the regime are adamant to arrest and kill more people. And this is obviously not because the regime is strong, unlike what is portrayed on the news. It's because the regime is petrified of people coming on the street again and topple the regime. So for that reason, right now, another element which I may add to that they have paid many of these proxies, Islamist group and brought from different countries. They are maneuvering on the streets in different cities with heavy machine gun and all that, to basically telling people that we're still there, we're still going to kill, and don't you dare coming on the street. So the situation is really, really difficult. And we have to add to that the fact that the internet and also telephone communication are still cut. So that means that people are in danger. They've been isolated. And there are not much of a news from Iran and also from prison.
Right, so millions of people living in fear. President Trump said back in January that help is on the way. Months on, weeks into this war, is there any sense that the US can help with what is happening in Iran?
To be honest, I mean, people in Iran are not illusional. They don't think that the revolution happened by attack by another country. But of course, they're happy that many of the leaders of the regime have been killed and the regime has been weakened more than before. And I guess right now we are looking at a situation in Iran. There are checkpoints, there are security forces everywhere. So it's kind of impossible for people come on the street when there is a danger of the war as well. But Donald Trump keeps saying that the regime has changed. This is nonsense because the regime has always been the same. And there are killers on the power even now. So the regime has not changed. No execution sentence have been overturned, unlike what Donald Trump says. So therefore, I guess what we want now, the isolation of the regime around the world, closing the embassy, expelling the diplomats, basically seizing the assets of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, IRGC, but none of this happening. So therefore, the regime do not see any consequences for what they're doing. People, I must add something, people, yes, live in fear, but at the same time, they are resilient in Iran, and they're adamant to overthrow the Islamic regime. But it's very difficult when the European countries, the government, they're still shaking hand with the Islamic regime, and they welcome them in the country.